Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name's StepsBasic and welcome back to my community show. That sounded so beautiful out here. Anyway, so welcome back to my community show where dreams become reality. That's not true. But anyway, so let's move on to our announcements first. So, for those of you who don't know, this week has been a bit hectic for me. I had a couple of days, well, one day actually, where I just couldn't upload at all because I had to go deal with taxes and get my my car's tags renewed. And then, yesterday, Friday, would have been, I had to go and talk with my karate sensei because we're looking at starting up again. Woo. After a long pandemic, it's going to be nice to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy. So yeah, uploads weren't exactly as consistent as I would have liked, but you know what? I got everything up. I got the stuff, well, that's not true, I didn't get everything up. I got a lot of Borderlands up. And I didn't forget that today's Saturday. So yeah. Regarding my last show, my last community show, regarding Bubble Ninja and the state of his channel. Well, it looks like he might actually be returning. We don't know yet, but he put his computer in the shop and hopefully he'll be able to get it back and we won't have any issues with him recording and stuff. So here's hoping, right? But apart from that, I don't really have any other announcements. It's been moving through Borderlands pretty quick. We're almost to the end of the main story, if I remember correctly, and so far my memory for the game hasn't been as consistent as I wanted it to be, but whatever, we're having fun. And so now we're going to be moving on to the main body of the show. So, inside, Bo Burnham. I've been going back and forth about my opinion on this. Well, no, my opinion on this has been pretty consistent for the entirety. I got a lot of recommendations by people to watch the show. And I watched the show. And I didn't like it. Now, that's not to say I hated it. Because there were definitely some entertaining parts. I have to admit, going into the show, I didn't know who Bo Burnham was. I thought he was somebody else. Because the only experience I'd had was like somebody said, "Oh, Bo Burnham's pretty funny. You should watch him." I'm like, "Oh, who's Bo Burnham?" "Oh, he's this guy who sings for comedy and whatnot." I'm like, "Oh, I've heard of him." But I was thinking of this guy over here, if I can find a picture of this guy over here. But I was thinking of the wrong person. So apparently I'd never seen anything by Bo Burnham before. And so this was interesting. So I went into the show expecting a comedy special, and it wasn't a comedy special. There were funny parts, like the sexting song. I think that one was probably the best of them all, because it was like, trying to figure out what people meant by emojis when they sent them, and that was pretty funny. It's an old man thing, it's an old man joke. But I don't know. After figuring out that it wasn't supposed to be a comedy special, I was like, okay, so I need to focus on what the message is, what the idea is, and I just didn't like it. And I hate that I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I actually understood every point he was trying to make, but I don't get why people liked it, honestly. To be honest, it was... I hate giving bad reviews for things, especially things that have been, like, widely accepted as good. Like doing the Witnesses review, I went back and forth on it, and I was like, I shouldn't keep myself from sharing my opinion on something that a lot of people seem to like. And like, going through the Witness, it was like, people like this game for what? And now going through Bo Burnham, it's like... why? The problem is not so much the idea of it, because it was one man's struggle through the pandemic and all the associated emotions and whatnot, and everything that's gone on in the world since 2020. And to a degree, it's good that people share these things, and it's good that Bo Burnham did this, and it's good that he shared his opinion and his feelings and his emotions. But people are trying to talk about this as if it's like the biggest, best statement about about experiencing through it and whatnot. And there were some parts that I kind of connected with a lot more, like the whole idea of being a creator and feeling that burn, like, oh God, why do I keep doing this? This is stupid. And that's what the whole thing was, really. It was like an art project based around keeping his motivation and creativity going through hard times. And that's something I can relate to. And I know it's tough. But therein lies one of the biggest problems is it was a niche, A lot of creators are going to relate to that because a lot of creators have been through that. And a lot of creators went through that in the pandemic, especially. Like, even I was affected by it. I didn't want to keep doing things. I wanted to just quit, find something else to do. But I kept going. I kept pushing through. Not so much for the audience, but for myself. Because, honestly, keeping my brain busy keeps me from going to dark places. Keeps me from becoming sad. Or sadder, anyway. And to that degree, I understand it, but at the same time, it's like, it felt very much like somebody saying, look at me, how special I am. And I know the whole pretentious aspect of it kind of threw me off, put me off of the show. And it's like, I'm so special because I suffered through this. And I've always said that suffering is not a competition sport. And maybe that was not his intention at all. I'm pretty sure that was not his intention at all. But that was the air that came across in it, was talking about all the stuff he's been through. It's like, look at how much I've suffered. And look how much I've suffered for this, for you. And it's not something you want to say. I mean, like at the beginning of this video, I had the whole... I showed you a kind of look at what I look like before I start recording. Throwing on a shirt, throwing on my uniform, and sitting down, and then getting ready for it. And yes, we all know that the faces that we put out here are exaggerated versions of ourselves. You can look at me, you can tell that I'm not always happy and bubbly, and I've talked about it numerous times on this channel. But the facade, so to speak, that I put on for y'all for the show is to put you at ease, to make you comfortable. And looking behind the scenes does not help the show in some cases. The point of his special there was, in my opinion, from what I understood, to show that things are not what they seem. And again, at the same time, water is wet and the sky is blue. So it's like everybody knows this. It's obvious. And maybe to a degree that this whole project that he went through and did was, as he stated, just a way to keep himself sane and whatnot. But the everything, the behind the scenes and whatnot, felt like it was pretentious. Him stating that he was in some way, despite what his intentions were, better for having suffered through this and kept going than some people. Now, a lot of people in the pandemic lost family, lost relatives, loved ones, and whatnot, and not necessarily to the virus and whatnot, but to just depression and loss and just how they just couldn't keep going. They lost people. And in a way that the special that he put out felt bad in that aspect. Because here's one guy talking about how he struggled through it, whereas other people didn't make it. And I might be reading too much into it, but now, of course, it could just be a straight up art piece, like, ooh, fancy, like, let's duct tape a banana to a wall sort of art piece. But I don't know. Looking at a lot of the songs and whatnot, that is where I really kind of lost touch with things, because it was like, I'm 14 and this is deep. So I've now covered all of the feelings that I went through watching it. It's like, we all breathe air. The water is wet, the sky is blue, a slight pretentious nature, and now stating things that are like things that 14-year-olds would post on their Instagram and whatnot. I'm 14 and it's deep and stuff like that. So it just altogether meshed into something that was unenjoyable for me. Like I said, I didn't hate it. There were parts of it that were funny. There were parts of it that were kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, I understand that. I can relate to that. But for the most part, it's just like, bleh. Additionally, people like to make a huge thing about turning 30. And I'm 35. I've been past the 30 thing. In fact, I was 30 or going on 30 when I started my channels. And I have been an old man for so long that it's just not, 30 doesn't mean much to me anymore, you know. And everybody makes a big deal about turning 30, and I'm looking at 40 coming up, and even that doesn't scare me. It doesn't fill me with dread or anything. It's just life progressing as normal. And to a degree, every time I see people complaining about turning 30, it just, I don't know, feels like a cheap shot at us who have made it past that. And I understand. Life is full of milestones, and I guess in a way turning 30 is a big milestone to some. To me, it didn't mean much. Turning 20, turning 21, those were kind of big milestones, because like I'm leaving my childhood behind and I'm becoming an adult. And by the time I'm 30, I have figured out who I am, what I want to be, how I want to live my life. And, or I should have, I better have. So I figured all that out, as most people should have, in their mid to late 20s. Allowing, of course, for some people to, fluctuate here or there. So 30 is not a major milestone. 40, I can kind of see it, because you've been an adult for longer than you've been a child now. And it's like at 30, 18 years minus 30, you were 12. So, or 12 years have passed since you were 18, I should say. So, it's not quite the same. But 40 is like you're definitely out of your childhood. You've left your childhood behind. You have been an adult longer than you've been a child. And to a degree, that is a little shake-worthy. Watching Bo Burnham do his little spiel, talking about how hard it has been. And to a degree, it felt cheap because, again, a lot of people had it worse. And myself, I had it worse. But I've also been the type of person who says don't compare that way. Because what's bad for me is not necessarily bad for other people, and vice versa. So, as a person who struggled as a bipolar person with anxiety and paranoia and just a very near nihilistic outlook on life, it was hard for me to take it seriously, especially at the end when he steps outside and just panics. I'm like, yes, that's a thing that people do. And especially if you have been properly socially distancing and properly isolating yourself from other people, going back out into the real world is going to be a culture shock. It's going to be startling. I understand that. But to overreact the way he did just felt like he was making fun of me. A person who really does not trust the world. Really, a person who really does experience that and has experienced that for a long time. He was not making fun of me. I'm going to stress that. I'm really sure that he was not making fun of me or people like me. I know that. But that's what it felt like watching it. Now, maybe Bo Burnham is the best thing since sliced bread. Maybe his other works have been spectacular. I haven't watched them. In fact, like I said, this was the first thing I'd ever seen by him. And maybe watching his other stuff will help to clarify that. And again, maybe he has had some issues in the past that would help me understand his position a little bit better rather than assigning what I interpreted from it. Like watching the special, I found out that he had decided to take a break from going on stage for a while. because he was feeling, I think he was burnt out, feeling overwhelmed, and just didn't want to keep doing it. And so he decided to take a break for a while and was going to go back to work right as soon as the pandemic hit. So it's like that. I guess he did suffer from some stuff, and then just to have it all thrown back at him. Like at first, I was thinking, okay, so this guy is making a special about how his entire career was upended by the pandemic. I can kind of sympathize. Mine did not, but I have had numerous friends of mine did. Some of them were not able to go back to work. Others had to go to work and had to fear for their health and safety every day. In fact, my ex-wife has had somewhere close to 10 COVID tests since the pandemic started. She had to get tested so many times because she worked in retail. She worked in high public access things. And oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have to do that. I made it through the entire pandemic without getting once. Never got tested. And I'm not saying that makes me better than anybody. That makes me lucky. Especially considering how many times I did go out, how many times I did leave the house. And for me, leaving the house in the midst of a massive pandemic with anxiety and paranoia and nihilism already high on me, I did not trust, I did not expect the best from anybody, and I figured that I was going to end up getting sick and probably dying every single day I had to go out. Yeah. But I didn't. I was lucky. And I thank all those who are out there taking care of the world for us. And I may have dodged several bullets, but of course I also took the measures that I always take every single time anyway. Washing my hands, also addition of a mask, and tried my best to keep away from people, even when I was out. And I hit some moments that were very high tense, high pressure, high situations, and had numerous panic attacks while out and about. But I muscled through it. I didn't cry about it. I kept going. Because that's what life is. And to me, watching the Bo Burnham special, it felt like he was complaining about life. And life sucks. But we got to keep going. Life has to keep moving. I'm glad that a lot of people took a lot of good away from his thing. I'm glad that a few people felt inspired by it. I'm glad so much that he was able to make something that connected with so many people. But unfortunately, it did not connect with me. And I hope you enjoyed it if you watched it. If you didn't watch it, well, try it out. Hopefully you haven't had people telling you that it's the best thing ever. Because honestly, that could also affect my opinion, because I had a lot of people telling me it was the best thing ever. And it felt very shallow to me. But if you do enjoy it, I hope you do. If you do watch it, if you do watch it, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it makes you feel good. I hope it makes you feel heard. And I hope it makes you feel seen. What were your opinions about it if you have seen it? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to listen to it. But apart from that, thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of The Community Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, please go and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down in the comment section down below. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. When I can, if I can. You know all that jazz. And tune in next time for another topic at another time. And until then, good night.